Emeka returned home with his mother and paused, watching what the house help was doing with his triplets. Ngozi was sitting on the polished wooden floor, talking to the three girls who listened, utterly captivated. For the first time in a long while, the children were absolutely silent. Emeka couldn't take his eyes off the scene. His feet seemed glued to the floor as he watched the three girls sitting there, attentive, calm, something he hadn't witnessed in months. His mother, beside him, had also stopped walking and watched in absolute silence. Ngozi continued speaking with the little ones, as if nothing else in the world mattered. Her hands moved delicately as she recounted something that made the triplets' eyes sparkle with curiosity. He felt his chest tighten because he knew this was rare, very rare. Since his wife had passed away a year and a half ago, the girls simply hadn't been the same. They cried non-stop, refused food, didn't sleep properly, woke up in the middle of the night screaming, and shouted at anyone who tried to approach them. He had tried everything. He hired specialized nannies with years of experience, renowned pediatricians, child psychologists with impressive credentials, occupational therapists recommended by medical specialists in child trauma who charged fortunes per hour. He brought in professionals from other states, paid fortunes for experimental treatments that promised miraculous results. Nothing worked. Absolutely nothing. The little ones seemed lost in a deep sadness that even he didn't know how to cure. And there was Ngozi, the house help he had hired just 3 weeks ago to assist with house cleaning twice a week, sitting on the floor with them, doing what no one else had managed, bringing peace to those little eyes that had been dull for so long. He barely remembered seeing them like this. His mother lightly touched his arm and whispered softly, her voice laden with emotion she could barely contain, her fingers trembling against the fabric of his suit, squeezing tightly as if she needed to hold on to something solid. "Are you seeing this, my son? Are you seeing what I am seeing? Is this real? Am I not imagining things?" He merely nodded, unable to speak. His throat felt too tight, as if someone was squeezing it from the outside, cutting off the air, preventing any words from escaping. Ngozi made a funny gesture with her hands, imitating a bird flapping its wings, moving her fingers as if they were feathers in the wind. And the three girls giggled at the same time. That sweet, crystal-clear sound he hadn't heard in so long. He'd forgotten how good it felt, how it warmed his chest and made everything seem less heavy, less impossible, less despairing. He felt his eyes sting and blinked several times, trying to control his emotion. He didn't want to cry there, not in front of his mother, not in front of anyone, but it was hard to hold back when he saw that, when he realized that perhaps, just perhaps, his daughters were becoming children again, regaining that lightness every child should have, that ability to marvel at simple things, to laugh for no apparent reason, to trust the people around them. The smallest of the triplets, Adaora, raised her tiny, delicate hand and touched Ngozi's face with a tenderness that broke his heart into 1,000 pieces, scattered across his chest. That girl hadn't touched anyone in months. She shied away from any physical contact as if it burned her, as if every touch were a threat. She would scream when anyone tried to pick her up, struggle forcefully, refuse hugs, even from him, her own father, pushing people away with a strength disproportionate to her size. And now, here she was, touching the house help's face with a tenderness that seemed impossible. Her tiny fingers tracing Ngozi's cheek carefully, as if she were rediscovering what it was to touch someone without fear, without that constant tension that had accompanied her since her mother had passed away. He saw Ngozi close her eyes for a second, as if she were absorbing that moment, storing it in her memory, engraving every detail never to forget. And when she opened her eyes again, they were sparkling, filled with tears she held back firmly, so they wouldn't fall in front of the girls, so as not to startle them with that display of emotion. Chiamaka and Neka also moved closer, dragging their little bodies across the wooden floor, the three forming a small circle around Ngozi, who continued talking to them in such a natural way it seemed she had always been there, as if she had been part of that family for years, as if she knew every detail of those girls' lives, every fear, every dream, every little thing that made them happy or sad. She spoke softly, with a gentle voice that barely reached where he stood. But judging by the girls' attention, it was as if every word was magic, as if she were telling them the most important secret in the world, and they didn't want to miss a single detail, a single comma, a single pause. He took a step forward without realizing. The movement made the wooden floor creak lightly, the sound echoing through the house's enormous hallway. Ngozi turned her head in his direction, and her eyes widened in alarm. The smile on her face vanished. Instantly, it was replaced by an expression of pure nervousness. She stood up quickly, almost tripping over her own feet, smoothing her blue uniform with nervous hands, trying to compose herself, trying to appear professional again, trying to return to the role she believed she should play. The girls looked at their father and immediately became quiet, tense. The little faces that had been bright and relaxed moments ago now returned to that guarded expression he knew so well. It was as if a curtain had fallen, concealing all the joy that had been there moments before. He hated to admit it, to know that his presence caused this in his own daughters, that they shut down when he appeared, as if he were a threat and not their father, as if he represented something bad instead of security. "Sir Emeka, I didn't know you had arrived. I finished cleaning upstairs about 15 minutes ago and came down to check if everything was all right down here." The girls were quiet, so I thought it wouldn't be a problem to spend a few minutes with them. "Please forgive me if I did anything wrong. It won't happen again, I promise. I know it wasn't my duty." He raised his hand, asking her to calm down. Her voice was trembling, clearly worried about being caught doing something she perhaps shouldn't. The fear of losing her job was evident on her face, in her nervous, fidgeting hands, in her tense posture that indicated she was ready for a scolding. But he wasn't angry. Quite the opposite. He was impressed, relieved, grateful, in a way he couldn't explain. So many emotions at once that he didn't know which to express first, which to put into words, without seeming weak or overly sentimental, without appearing like the successful businessman who was about to crumble in front of a domestic staff member earning minimum wage. "No need to apologize, Ngozi. You did absolutely nothing wrong. On the contrary, you did something incredible. I just wanted to know what you were doing with them, how you managed to make them like this. I've never seen my daughters so calm, so present, so alive. It's been so long since I've seen them like this that I'd almost forgotten it was possible." She seemed even more nervous, if that was possible. She glanced at the girls, who were now silently observing the two adults. Then she turned her eyes back to him, hesitant, her hands still smoothing her uniform, as if that could calm her, as if that repetitive gesture brought some comfort, some sense of control in a situation that clearly made her uncomfortable. "I was just telling a story, sir. Nothing special. Just a simple tale my grandmother used to tell me when I was little and afraid to sleep alone, about 3 little birds who learned to fly together, who were very scared at first but discovered that when they were together, everything became easier, lighter, less frightening. It's silly, I know, perhaps too childish. It's not educational or instructive at all, but they seemed to like it. They stayed quiet, listening until the end, asking little questions now and then." Emeka felt an even greater tightness in his chest, as if an enormous weight had been placed upon it. That simple woman, in her blue uniform and white apron, without diplomas or certificates hanging on the wall, without expensive courses or impressive specializations, without modern techniques or revolutionary methods, had achieved in 3 weeks what expensive and renowned professionals couldn't in over a year of frustrated attempts. He looked at his daughters, who remained sitting on the floor, and noticed their little faces were different, lighter, less tense, less burdened by that heavy sadness that seemed to never leave. There was color in their cheeks, which had always been pale before, a sparkle in their eyes, which had always been dull. It was as if someone had lit a light within them that had been extinguished for too long, a light he thought would never return. His mother approached and stood beside him. She also seemed emotional. Her eyes were teary, and she clutched her handbag tightly, taking deep breaths to keep from crying in front of everyone. He knew that expression. It was the same one she wore when she tried to be strong but was crumbling inside, when the world weighed too heavily. But she needed to stay standing. She needed to hold things together, because no one else would. "Ngozi, may I ask you a question? If it's not too much trouble." "Of course, sir. You can ask anything you want. I am here to help." "Ngozi, how did you do it? How did you make them so calm, so attentive? I've brought so many people here, people with degrees from expensive universities, with years of experience working with traumatized children, with modern methods that promised quick results, new techniques that were gaining success in other countries. I spent fortunes on treatments, private consultations that cost over 50,000 naira each, weekly sessions that lasted months, and nothing worked. Absolutely nothing. The girls only got worse, more withdrawn, more distant, more lost. What did you do differently? What's your secret?" She looked at the girls again. A gentle smile appeared on her face, full of genuine affection. The kind of affection that isn't learned from books, that can't be bought with money, that simply exists or doesn't exist, that comes from within or from nowhere at all. "I didn't do anything special, sir. Truly, I have no secret or magic technique. I just talked to them, treated them with affection, as if they were my nieces. I listened when they wanted to talk about anything. I let them be quiet when they didn't want to say anything. I respected their pace, never forced anything. Sometimes children just need someone who is truly present, you know? Someone who looks them in the eye and shows they genuinely care, who isn't in a hurry to leave, who doesn't have a clock in their hand counting the minutes, who doesn't treat them as a problem to be solved as quickly as possible, or a case to be studied for a scientific paper. They are just children with broken hearts, who lost their mother and don't know how to cope. They need time, patience, someone who won't give up on them when it gets difficult, who won't leave when they scream or cry or push, who stays by their side showing them they will never be alone again, that someone will always be there for them. Those words hit Emeka with an unexpected force, like a punch to the stomach that knocks all the air from one's lungs, leaving them dizzy, disoriented, unsure where to look. He always thought he was doing everything right. He worked hard to give his daughters the best. He spent hours in the office to earn enough money. He hired the best professionals money could buy. He bought everything they could possibly need or desire, expensive toys that sat unused, designer clothes they barely wore. He paid fortunes for treatments and therapies that yielded no results. He took them to the best doctors in the city, some even from other states who came specially to attend to them. But perhaps what they truly needed was something money couldn't buy. Genuine presence, authentic attention, quality time instead of expensive gifts, someone who looked at them and saw more than just difficult or traumatized children who needed fixing. Someone who saw 3 little girls who had lost their mother and were trying to understand a world that had suddenly become very frightening and confusing, that no longer made sense, that seemed to have lost all its rules. Adaora got up from the floor and walked to Ngozi, her tiny footsteps making soft sounds on the polished wooden floor that reflected the light from the windows. She hugged Ngozi's leg and stayed there quietly, leaning against it, her little face pressed against the blue uniform fabric, as if that were the safest place in the whole world. Chiamaka and Neka soon did the same, getting up almost simultaneously, the 3 clinging to the house, help, as if she were the only solid thing in a world crumbling around them, as if she were the anchor that held them in place. Emeka felt the tears finally escape, rolling warmly down his face, wetting the beard he hadn't shaved in days, simply because he had no spirit for such things, because waking up and getting ready seemed an impossible task when everything else was falling apart. He didn't try to hide them. There was no reason for it anymore. There was no pride or image to maintain. His mother held his hand and squeezed tightly. She, too, was crying in silence, her shoulders trembling slightly, trying not to make a sound, so as not to startle her granddaughters, so as not to spoil that rare moment. Ngozi looked at him with worry etched on her face, clearly not knowing what to do or say. Her eyes were also moist now, glistening with tears that hadn't yet fallen but were right there at the brim, ready to spill over. He quickly wiped his face with his hands, passing over his wet cheeks and swollen eyes, trying to compose himself minimally, and took a few steps forward. He knelt on the floor, at the girl's height, feeling his knees touch the cool wood. They looked at him with those big, curious eyes, still clinging to Ngozi, unsure if they could trust this moment, if it was safe to approach their father, who had seemed so distant lately. "Girls, Daddy is here now. It's all right? Daddy loves you very much, truly, more than anything in this world, more than everything that exists. You are the most important thing in my life." The girls didn't reply, but they also didn't pull away. It was a small but real progress, more than he had achieved in all the previous weeks combined. He extended his arms slowly, without forcing anything, without making sudden movements that could startle them or make them retreat, just waiting, his heart pounding in his chest, so hard it felt like it would burst out. And to his surprise, Adaora let go of Ngozi's leg and took a hesitant step towards him, looking at him as if testing if it was safe, if she could trust, if this hug would be different from the others, which had seemed too desperate. Then another step, each one seeming to last an entire eternity, until she finally threw herself into his arms. He held her tightly, yet carefully, feeling her small, warm body against his chest, the smell of children's shampoo in her slightly messy blonde hair, her weight so light, yet so significant that it felt like he was holding the entire world, everything that truly mattered in life. The other 2 saw their sister and came right after, Chiamaka with her arms open and a shy smile on her face. Then, Neka, more slowly, more cautiously, still testing if she could trust. And suddenly, he was there on the elegant corridor floor, hugging his 3 daughters at the same time, something that hadn't happened in so long it felt like a distant dream, a memory from another life, from a time when things still made sense, and the family was still complete. He pressed the 3 of them against his chest, feeling their warmth, their small, quick breaths, their hearts beating against his, and for the first time in over a year, he felt that perhaps, just perhaps, they could overcome this, that there might still be hope, even when everything seemed utterly lost and without solution. Ngozi took a step back, giving space for that moment, which was theirs, the family's. But Emeka lifted his face and looked at her, his voice muffled, full of emotion he could no longer hold back or disguise. "Don't go, please. They need you here. I need you to stay close. I don't know what I would do without you now. I don't know how things would go back to how they were before you arrived." She hesitated, her eyes still sparkling with tears that were now beginning to fall down her face, but she ended up staying, taking a few more steps until she was close again, crouching down a little to be nearer to the girls. His mother also approached and knelt beside him, caressing her granddaughter's hair with all the affection in the world, her fingers trembling with emotion, running through their blonde locks with extreme delicacy, as if afraid to break something precious and fragile. They stayed like that for a few minutes, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 15, he couldn't say, and it didn't even matter, just feeling that rare and precious moment. No one said anything, just the meaningful silence and the soft sound of the children's breathing. Adaora began to cry softly, not from sadness or pain, but from profound relief, as if something inside her had finally loosened, a knot that had been tied too tightly in her tiny chest for too long. And soon the other two were crying too, all three, weeping in his arms, while Ngozi and their grandmother caressed their hair, murmuring words of comfort that didn't even need to make sense, they just needed to be said with affection. When they finally stood up, after the girls had completely calmed down and started yawning with fatigue, their little eyes heavy and red from crying so much, Emeka knew he had to do something immediately. He couldn't let that moment pass. He couldn't let Ngozi leave at the end of the day and remain just the house help who came a few times a week to clean the house. She was much more than that, the person who had given him back his daughters, who had brought light into a home that had been plunged in darkness for too long, who had shown that hope still existed even when all seemed lost, even when he was on the verge of giving up everything and considering admitting the girls to a specialized clinic. He wiped his face again, running his hands over his swollen, red eyes, and looked directly at her. His voice was firm, despite the emotion that still lingered just beneath the surface, ready to erupt again at any moment. "Ngozi, I need to talk to you now. Is that all right? It's very important. It can't wait until later. It has to be now." She looked surprised, her eyes widening slightly, her mouth opening a little in astonishment, but she nodded in agreement. They left the girls with their grandmother, who sat on the floor and began to play with them, making funny faces and odd voices that elicited tired giggles, soft sounds that were still music to his ears. They then went to the large living room. He carefully closed the door behind them and asked her to sit on the large brown leather sofa. She obeyed, still visibly nervous, her hands clasped in her lap, her fingers squeezing each other until they turned white from the pressure. He sat in the armchair opposite her and took several deep breaths before he began to speak, organizing the thoughts that were all jumbled in his head, trying to find the right words to express what he felt. "I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you did for my daughters today and in the past few days. I don't know how you did it, but you brought them back. You gave me back my girls. I was completely lost, without direction. I no longer knew what to do. I woke up every day not knowing how it would be, if they would eat anything, if they would manage to sleep at night, if they would let me get close without screaming, if they would spend the whole day crying or just staring into space as if there was no life left within them. I tried absolutely everything within my reach. I spent fortunes on treatments of the most varied kinds. I consulted the best professionals in the entire country, some even from outside Nigeria. I brought people from Lagos, from Abuja, from Port Harcourt, from Ibadan. Once, I even brought a renowned specialist from South Africa whom everyone recommended, and nothing worked. Nothing brought results. The girls only got worse, becoming more and more withdrawn, more distant, more lost in a world of their own that I couldn't reach. And I felt like a complete failure as a father, because I couldn't help my own daughters, I couldn't take away that immense pain from them, I couldn't make them smile again. And you appeared out of nowhere and simply changed everything. In just 3 weeks, you did what no one could achieve in over a year of frustrated attempts. You brought the light back into their eyes, you brought back their smiles, you brought back their will to live and be children again. Ngozi opened her mouth to reply, her lips visibly trembling, but he raised his hand, asking her to wait a little longer. He needed to say everything at once before his courage completely vanished. before he lost the moment and couldn't say what needed to be said, what had been stuck in his throat for days. "I know very well that you were hired to be a house help, to clean the house, wash clothes, iron, tidy the rooms, those everyday things. But I want to offer you another job, something completely different. I want you to be the official nanny for the girls, a full-time caregiver, a governess, or whatever you'd like to call this role. 4 hours a day, living here in the house, permanently. If you accept, there's a very good, large, spacious, self-contained room available on the second floor, fully equipped. With a beautiful view of the back garden, it can all be yours. Furnish it however you like. Choose the wall colors, the furniture, the decor, everything. I will pay for everything. I will pay triple what you earn now for the cleaning. Maybe even more, if you think it should be more. We can negotiate the amount, and you will have complete freedom to care for them exactly as you see fit, in your own way. I won't be constantly over your shoulder. I won't question your decisions regarding the girls. I won't bring in other professionals to interfere or offer opinions. I trust you completely. I trust you more than anyone who has ever worked in this house, because you proved in just 3 weeks that you know exactly what they need, that you have something special. No expensive university degree can teach anyone." Ngozi's eyes quickly filled with tears. The first few began to fall immediately, tracing shiny paths down her cheeks. She brought her trembling hands to her face and remained silent for several long seconds, her shoulders visibly shaking, trying to process everything he had just said, trying to understand if it was real or if she was dreaming. When she finally managed to speak after taking several deep breaths, her voice came out muffled and soft, full of emotion she couldn't contain at all and no longer tried to hide. "Sir Emeka, I don't know what to say to you. I am completely speechless right now, without a reaction. I never in my life imagined you would make such an offer to me. It never crossed my mind, not even in my wildest dreams. I truly love these girls. From the first day I saw them here, I felt a very strong connection, something I can't quite explain with words. It was as if I already knew them from somewhere, from another life, perhaps. As if it were my destiny to be here caring for them, as if everything in my life had prepared me exactly for this moment, to be here with them now. But I am very afraid of not being good enough for this responsibility, of disappointing you, and especially them, of not being able to care for them in the way they truly deserve. I have no academic qualifications whatsoever. I didn't study for this in any school. I don't have a beautiful diploma hanging on the wall. I didn't attend university for pedagogy or psychology, or anything of that sort. I don't have courses in first aid or child development or trauma. I am just a very simple woman who learned to care for children through life itself, through everyday experience. I took care of my younger siblings from a young age, when my mother worked all day. My nieces and nephews too, when my sister needed help. But I never imagined that would be enough for a family like yours, so important for children who have been through what they have, who need so much special care and attention. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, looking deeply into her eyes with intensity, wanting her to understand every word, every comma, every pause of what he was about to say, to feel the absolute truth in every syllable that left his mouth. "That's exactly why I want you and no one else, precisely because of everything you've said. You didn't learn this from boring books or theoretical courses. You didn't memorize cold techniques or methods from some educational manual. You learned it with a beating heart, with real-life experience, with true and genuine love that cannot be taught in any university in the world. And that's exactly what my daughters need right now, someone who truly loves them unconditionally. Someone who is present here, not because they are being paid very well for it, not because it's a professional or contractual obligation, but because they genuinely care for them as people, because they look at them and see 3 beautiful, special girls who deserve to be happy again. Not 3 interesting clinical cases or cold statistics in some academic study. I clearly saw how you looked at them out there in the hallway. I saw the genuine affection etched on your face. I saw that it wasn't pretense at all. It wasn't forced or theatrical professionalism. It was completely real. It came from within your heart. And they felt it too, with absolute certainty. Young children know perfectly well when someone is genuine with them. They sense it naturally. They have a special radar for these things that we adults have lost over time. So I ask you again, with all sincerity, without any rush, you can think as long as you need. Talk to your entire family about it. Think carefully about all the consequences. Do you accept to care for my daughters full-time? Ngozi wiped the tears from her face with the back of her trembling hands, took several deep breaths, trying to calm herself and control her emotion. Looking at him with an intensity he hadn't expected to see, There was a very strong determination in those eyes now, mixed with deep emotion, with natural fear, but also with something that seemed like true hope, a purpose in life, as if she had finally found the exact place where she was meant to be, the reason she was born. Yes, Sir Emeka, I accept. I accept with all my heart. I don't even need to think too much or talk to anyone. I know this is what I want. I will care for them as if they were my own daughters. I will give them all the love they deserve and much more. All the affection I have stored within me, I will be present in every moment of their lives, in the good times and the bad, when they are happy playing, and when they are sad crying, when they want to play and run, and when they want to stay quiet in a corner. I will do absolutely everything within my power and beyond to make them happy again, to make them smile every day again, to play like normal children, to be real children, without all this burden. I promise from my heart that I will not disappoint you, sir, nor them. I promise I will care for them with all the dedication I have, with all the love that exists within me. Emeka felt such immense relief that he had to take several deep breaths to keep from breaking down in front of her. That answer was everything he needed to hear, everything he hoped for, but feared he wouldn't get. He stood up from the armchair and extended his hand to Ngozi, who also rose, and shook his hand firmly, sealing an agreement that was much more than professional. It was a commitment of care, of love, of dedication to the three girls who needed it most in the entire world. He held her hand for a few seconds longer than usual, wanting her to feel the gratitude he had, to understand how much this meant to him and the girls, to that family that was broken and desperately needed someone to help put the pieces back together. Thank you, Ngozi. Thank you very much indeed. You have no idea how much this means to me, to us, to this entire household. You can start tomorrow if you wish, or we can wait a few days for you to organize yourself better, bring your things calmly, inform your family, resolve whatever you need to, whatever is best for you. No rush. She smiled, a beautiful and genuine smile that lit up her entire face. Her eyes were still red and swollen from crying so much, but with a happiness etched there that couldn't be hidden at all. It was as if she, too, had found something she had been searching for a long time. Can I start tomorrow? Yes, sir. I don't have many things to bring, truly. I live alone in a small rented apartment. I can pack everything tonight and bring it early tomorrow. If you don't mind, I want to start right away. I can't wait to be with the girls. He nodded several times, still holding her hand, feeling that something was finally going right after so much time of failures and frustrations that had left him without ground. I don't mind at all. The sooner the better for all of us. The girls will be very happy to know that you will be staying here with them all the time, that you won't have to leave at the end of the day anymore. They returned to the hallway together and found his mother still playing with the triplets on the floor, who were now giggling softly at something their grandmother was doing with her hands, imitating a funny animal. When they saw Ngozi approaching, the three girls jumped up and ran to her, hugging her legs again tightly. That scene made his heart ache in a good way, in a way he hadn't felt in so long he'd forgotten it was possible to feel. His mother looked at him with a curious expression, wanting to know what they had discussed in the living room. He gave her a discreet signal to wait. He would tell her everything later, calmly. Ngozi knelt down to the girls' height and began talking to them softly, saying she had to leave now but would return very early tomorrow and stay with them all day and every other day too. The girls didn't seem to fully understand what that meant, but they nodded their heads. Adaora asked if she would tell more stories about the little birds, and Ngozi promised she would. That she would tell as many stories as they wanted to hear about little birds, about princesses, about anything they asked for. That elicited little smiles from the three girls, which made their eyes sparkle again. When Ngozi finally left, after bidding farewell to the girls with long, lingering hugs and sincere promises that she would return soon, Emeka sat on the large living room sofa with his mother and told her everything that had happened. Every detail of the conversation, every word exchanged. She listened in absolute silence, her eyes shining with emotion, her hands clasped in her lap. And when he finished speaking, she held his hands and squeezed with all her strength. You did the right thing, my son. The only right thing you could do in this situation. This young woman has something very special. I saw it today with my own eyes. She has a gift for dealing with children, especially with your girls, who need it so much someone who genuinely cares. I am absolutely sure that everything will get better now, that things will finally start to fall into place. He wanted to believe it with all his strength. He wanted to believe that things would finally truly fall into place, that the girls would be happy again as they were before, that the house would come alive again instead of that heavy, suffocating sadness that constantly hung in the air. That night, When he put the triplets to bed in their rooms, they didn't cry, as they always did. They didn't scream or struggle when he turned off the light. Adaora even allowed him to stroke her hair as she closed her tired little eyes. That was so rare, so precious, so unexpected, that he stood there by the bed for almost half an hour, just watching them sleep peacefully, listening to their calm, deep breathing, seeing their relaxed little faces, without that constant tension. When he finally left their room and went to his own, for the first time in over a year, he managed to sleep without waking up in the middle of the night, worried, without having horrible nightmares, without staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that was going wrong and how he was an incapable father. The next morning, Ngozi arrived precisely at 7 o'clock, carrying 2 large, heavy bags and a backpack. Emeka helped carry the bags up to the room on the 2nd floor, which would now be hers. A spacious and bright room that had a comfortable double bed, a large wooden wardrobe, a comfortable armchair near the big window, and a full bathroom with a shower enclosure and mirror. She looked around with wide eyes, clearly surprised by the size and comfort of the place, by the beautiful garden view visible from the window. "It's very beautiful, sir. Much more than I imagined. Much better than where I used to live. Thank you so much for this, for giving me such a nice space." He shrugged, wanting her to feel completely at ease, to know that this was her space now, and that she could do whatever she wanted with it. "You deserve this and much more, Ngozi. Feel free to change whatever you want here. Buy whatever you need to make it your own curtains, rugs, whatever. Just let me know, and I'll arrange it immediately." She thanked him again, still looking around as if she couldn't believe the place was hers, and began unpacking her things while he went down to see the girls, who were already awake and having breakfast with their grandmother in the large kitchen. When he told them that Ngozi had arrived and would be living with them now, that she would have a room here and wouldn't have to leave anymore, the 3 little faces lit up in a way he had never seen before. Chiamaka began to clap her hands animatedly. Neka let out a high-pitched squeal of pure joy, and Adaora simply smiled. A big, genuine smile that showed all her tiny teeth. Moments later, Ngozi came down the stairs and was greeted with tight hugs and animated questions from all of them at once. She knelt on the kitchen floor and talked to each of them separately, patiently explaining that she would now live in that house and care for them every day. That they would always play together, tell stories before bedtime, do fun things. The girls seemed unable to believe their luck. The first few days were a natural adaptation. Ngozi established a gentle and consistent routine with the triplets. They woke up early every day at the same time. They had breakfast together in the kitchen, chatting about what they would do. They played a little in the living room or garden, depending on the weather. Afterwards, there was time for calm activities, like drawing with crayons or assembling puzzles on the floor. In the afternoon, she would tell stories with different voices for each character, or put on children's songs for them to dance to in the living room, always with infinite patience, never forcing anything at all, respecting each girl's individual pace, understanding that each one had her own rhythm. Emeka observed from a distance whenever he could, watching his daughters react in ways he never imagined possible. They laughed more, talked more about what they felt, even began to eat their meals better, something that had been a huge and constant problem before. He noticed that Ngozi had a unique and special way of dealing with each of them individually. She knew exactly when Adaora needed a tight hug, when Chiamaka wanted to be alone for a few minutes to process her emotions. When Nneka needed extra attention because she was more sensitive, it was as if she could read their emotions without them having to say anything at all. After 2 weeks of living in the house, the changes were already completely visible to anyone who entered the place. The girls no longer cried in the middle of the night, waking up the whole house. They slept peacefully through the night, without waking up screaming from nightmares. They started playing again with the toys that used to sit gathering dust in the corners. They even asked Ngozi to take them to the back garden to play on the green grass, to feel the sun on their skin, something they hadn't done for months. Emeka was sitting in his office working on some documents when he heard loud laughter coming from outside. He got up from his chair and went to the large window. He saw the 3 girls running after Ngozi on the lawn, who was pretending to be a funny monster, making faces and silly sounds. All 4 were laughing so hard they could barely breathe. He felt his eyes fill with tears again, but this time it was from true happiness, from profound relief, from immense gratitude for having found that special woman who was bringing his daughters back to life, returning the childhood stolen by trauma. His mother visited almost every day without fail, and always commented on the impressive changes. She said her granddaughters were completely different, lighter, happier, more like normal children who didn't carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. One day she pulled Emeka to a corner of the living room and said softly, her voice full of suppressed emotion, "That young woman was a blessing sent from heaven into your lives, my son. I have never seen the girls like this, so vibrant, so present, so full of good energy. You were very lucky to find her. Or maybe it wasn't luck, maybe it was destiny itself." He completely agreed because he knew it was the absolute truth. It had been luck, or destiny, or divine intervention, or whatever it was. But Ngozi had appeared at the exact moment they most desperately needed help. When everything seemed utterly lost and without possible solution, when he was already beginning to lose hope that things could truly improve one day, when he was seriously considering admitting the girls to a specialized clinic because he no longer knew what to do. As the following months passed, the transformation became even clearer and more impressive. The girls started calling him Daddy again with affection, something they had completely stopped doing. They started asking him to play with them on weekends, proudly showing him the colorful drawings they made in the afternoon, and animatedly told him things that happened during the day in detail. He felt he was finally recovering his true relationship with them, and knew perfectly well that this was only happening because of Ngozi. She wasn't just mechanically caring for the girls, she was teaching them to trust people again, to open up without fear, to accept the love of those around them, without thinking they would be abandoned again. One day, about 4 months after Ngozi had definitively started living with them, Emeka arrived home from work earlier than usual, and found a scene that was etched in his memory forever, one he knew he would never forget, even if he lived to be 100. The 3 girls were sitting on the large living room sofa, one on each side of Ngozi, and one squeezed in the middle. She was reading a thick storybook aloud, and they were paying complete attention, their little eyes fixed on the colorful illustrations on the pages. It was such a simple scene, so common in any normal family in the world, but for him it was absolutely extraordinary, because it concretely proved that his daughters were managing to overcome the immense trauma, were managing to return to having a normal childhood life. He stood still at the living room door, observing for several long minutes, until Adaora noticed his presence and shouted animatedly, jumping off the sofa, "Daddy, you came home early, come and listen to the story with us. It's about a magical castle." He didn't need to be told twice. He went to the sofa and sat on the floor in front of them, so as not to obstruct anyone's view. Ngozi smiled at him with that warm smile and continued reading with different voices for each character. The girls occasionally made funny comments or curious questions about the story, and she answered everything with infinite patience. When the story finally ended with a happy ending, Chiamaka immediately asked for another, but Ngozi said with a firm but affectionate voice that it was dinner time and they needed to eat. The 3 complained a little, pouting, but obeyed without much drama, getting up from the sofa and going to the kitchen hand in hand with each other. Emeka remained sitting on the floor for a few more seconds, just absorbing that perfect moment, committing every detail to memory. Ngozi approached and extended a hand to help him up from the floor. "Is everything all right, Sir Emeka? Any problems at work?" He held her hand and stood up, looking directly into her eyes with intensity. "Everything is more than all right, Ngozi. Better than it has been in a very long time, thanks to you. I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done and continue to do every day for my daughters. You completely changed their lives. You changed my life too, in ways I can't even properly explain." She became shy from the compliment, looking away, but he clearly saw that she was emotional, her eyes glistening. "I just did what anyone who truly loves children would do, sir. They are too special. They deserve all the care and love in the world. It's no sacrifice to look after them." He shook his head several times, completely disagreeing. "Not just anyone could do what you did, Ngozi. Many qualified people tried and failed miserably. You have a true gift, something that comes from within. And I am eternally grateful that you accepted to care for them, for not giving up when it got difficult." That night, during dinner at the large kitchen table, the girls were extremely animated, recounting their day in detail, talking about the games they played in the garden, the drawings they painted in the afternoon, the songs they sang together. Emeka actively participated in the conversation, asking questions to learn more, genuinely laughing at the funny stories they excitedly told. It was a real family scene, something he honestly thought he would never have again after his wife had passed away, leaving a huge void. When he put the girls to bed later, each of them hugged him tightly and said they loved him very much. Adaora even specifically asked him to tell a story before sleeping. He told one he made up on the spot about 3 courageous princesses who faced challenges together and always helped each other. They loved every word and fell asleep smiling peacefully. When he came back down to the empty living room, he found Ngozi carefully tidying the toys that were scattered on the floor. He approached and started helping without being asked. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, until he finally spoke what he had been thinking and feeling for entire weeks. Ngozi, I wanted to tell you something important. You have become a fundamental and essential part of this family. The girls truly love you. I see perfectly how their eyes sparkle differently when you're around, how they become lighter. And I wanted you to know that you will always have a place here in this house. No matter what happens in the future, you will always be welcome, always important to us, always a part of this family. She completely stopped tidying the toys and looked at him, her eyes immediately welling up with tears. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Sir Emeka. Those words mean a lot to me, more than you can imagine. I also love these girls as if they were my own daughters. I never imagined I would become so attached that they would occupy such a large and important space in my heart. Sometimes I wake up at night and go to their room just to see if they're all right, if they're covered, if they're breathing peacefully. They finished tidying the living room together, talking softly, and each went to their own room. Emeka lay on his large bed and, for the first time in a very long time, felt completely at peace. He felt that things were finally in the right place, that his family was truly healing, that there was real hope for a better and happier future. The months continued to pass quickly, and the girls kept evolving in increasingly impressive ways. They started asking natural questions about their mother, something they had completely avoided before out of fear. Ngozi always answered with great care and affection, saying that their mother was in a special, beautiful place, that she would always love them wherever she was, that it was completely normal to feel longing and sadness sometimes. She never tried to replace their mother in any way. She always made it very clear that she was Ngozi, who was there to care for and love them with all her heart, but that they had a mother who also loved them very much and always would. A full year after Ngozi's arrival in their lives, Emeka organized a small, special birthday party for the triplets, who were turning 5 years old. He invited his mother, some of the girls' cousins, and a few close family friends, wanting something intimate and welcoming, not a huge, noisy party. Ngozi helped organize absolutely everything with dedication. She made colorful and joyful decorations throughout the house. She prepared delicious homemade small chops. She bought a beautiful 3-tiered cake with the girls' favorite theme, which had princesses and castles. When the guests began to arrive in the afternoon, the triplets were absolutely radiant, wearing identical rose-colored dresses that Ngozi had carefully chosen. They ran all over the house, excitedly showing off their new toys, laughing loudly, interacting naturally with everyone, without fear or shyness. Throughout the entire party, Emeka's mother approached him several times with constant tears in her eyes. Look at them, my son. Just look at how happy and free they are. A year ago, I never in my life would have imagined this would be possible again, that they would return to being like this. You made the most correct choice of your life when you hired that young woman. He looked at his daughters, who were happily playing Ring Around the Rosie with other children, and agreed with everything. He had indeed made the right choice, the best possible choice. Trusting Ngozi was the best decision he had ever made in his entire life. When the long-awaited moment to sing Happy Birthday finally arrived, everyone gathered around the large table, the girls standing in front of the enormous cake, their little eyes sparkling with pure excitement. Ngozi stood right beside them, helping to hold the colorful candles so they wouldn't fall. When they finished singing the song and the girls blew out all the candles at once, making secret wishes with their eyes closed, Adaora looked directly at Ngozi and said loudly enough for absolutely everyone present to hear, "I wished for Ngozi to stay with us forever and never leave." Chiamaka and Nneka immediately agreed, saying they had wished for exactly the same thing, that they wanted her to stay forever. Ngozi became utterly emotional at once, her eyes filling with thick tears. Immediately, she knelt down to their height and hugged all three tightly, whispering something softly that only they heard, but which made all three smile even more. Emeka felt his chest tighten with emotion. He looked around the room and saw that several guests were also visibly moved by that scene. His mother cried openly, not caring, wiping away falling tears with a paper napkin. That moment summarized absolutely everything. It clearly showed that Ngozi was not just a hired employee. She was true family. She was essential. She was the person who had literally saved those 3 little girls and given them a real chance to be happy again, to have a childhood, despite everything they had been through. When the party finally ended and all the guests had left, the house settled into a pleasant, welcoming silence. The girls were visibly tired but incredibly happy, sitting on the large sofa with Ngozi, looking at the hundreds of photos they had taken throughout the party. Emeka sat with them and participated in that special memory session, laughing loudly at the funny faces that appeared in the photos, commenting on the most special moments of the day. When it was finally bedtime, because it was already late, he helped Ngozi put the three girls to bed. Each received affectionate kisses and tight hugs, and all of them fell asleep almost instantly, completely exhausted from so much accumulated happiness. He and Ngozi came down the stairs together and sat in the living room, tired but extremely satisfied with how perfect the day had been. It was an absolutely perfect day. Thank you for everything, Ngozi, for organizing this beautiful party with so much care, for looking after them so well every day, for always being present in every moment, in the good times and the difficult ones. He smiled. That soft, genuine smile he knew so well after an entire year. It was an enormous pleasure, sir. Seeing them this happy is priceless in the world. It's the greatest reward I could have, better than any salary. They stayed there, talking peacefully for some more time about how much the girls had grown that year, about their plans for the future, about little everyday things that made a difference. It was a peaceful and comfortable conversation, the kind that only happens between people who truly care for each other and deeply respect one another. When they finally said goodnight, and each went to their own room, Emeka slowly climbed the stairs, a feeling of deep gratitude filling his chest. He entered his room and lay on the comfortable bed, looked at the white ceiling, and thought about everything that had happened in the entire past year, about how radically things had changed, how his daughters were happy and healthy again, how he had recovered his true relationship with them, how the house had returned to real life and genuine joy, instead of that suffocating sadness, all because of an extremely simple woman he had initially hired just to clean the house, and who ended up becoming much more than that, much more important than he had ever imagined possible. Ngozi didn't have expensive diplomas or impressive certificates. She didn't have modern techniques or revolutionary methods taught in universities. But she had something far more valuable than all of that combined. She had true and unconditional love. She had infinite patience. She had the rare ability to see beyond superficial problems and recognize the children who desperately needed real care. She had done what no expensive and qualified professional could do. She had given back the stolen childhood to the triplets. She had taught them to trust people again, to love again without fear, to live again with lightness, and for that, he would be eternally grateful for the rest of his life. On that special night, for the first time since his wife had passed away, leaving an enormous void, Emeka slept with a genuine smile on his face, knowing deeply that his daughters were completely safe, happy, and very loved, knowing that in the room upstairs there was a dedicated and special woman who cared for them as if they were her own daughters, who would never give up on them at any moment, who would always be faithfully present in good times and bad, on easy days and difficult days. He finally felt that his family was complete again, in a different way than before, but complete nonetheless. And that was absolutely everything he needed to move forward with hope, to firmly believe that better days were always possible, even after the most difficult and devastating storms, even when everything seemed utterly lost, beyond retrieval. The story of that entire family was living proof that true love, the kind that comes from the depths of the heart and not from obligations or contracts, is capable of healing the deepest and most painful wounds, of rebuilding what seemed forever destroyed, beyond repair, of bringing intense light to the darkest and most hopeless places. It all began on that seemingly ordinary day when he returned home early and saw the house help sitting on the wooden floor, talking to his triplets, that simple yet extremely powerful moment that changed absolutely everything, that clearly showed that sometimes the solutions we desperately search for in complicated and expensive places are right in front of us all the time. In the simplest and most humble people, in those who don't promise impossible miracles, but deliver true and genuine care every day, without exception, transforming lives in ways no money in the world could buy. If this story found you at the right time, share what you felt, pass it on to someone special, and follow the channel to keep experiencing stories that speak to the heart.